Hey, second graders, we're on chapter 58. When we left off, Roz had just finished helping the animals put out the fire and build a new lodge. Chapter 58, The Conversations. Thanks to Roz's truce, life inside the nest was mostly harmonious. But when the animals went outside, it was business as usual. Sometimes a lodger wouldn't return. Sometimes a lodger would return in the belly of another lodger. So when everyone was gathered around the fire, they tried to keep things as pleasant as they could. I wonder what Bright Bill is doing right now. Chit Chat lay on her back looking at the ceiling as she spoke. And where is he? And who's he with? And if he even thinks about us back here on the island. I'm sure he thinks about us, said Roz. I think about him all the time. I like to imagine that the geese had a fun flight to the wintering grounds, and now Bright Bill is floating on a lovely lake, eating yummy food and making wonderful new friends. But hopefully they're not too wonderful, because I'd still like to stay his best friend if possible. That's a nice thought, said Roz, but I worry that the flock might have gotten caught in the icy weather, and I don't think they would handle it well. Don't worry, I'm sure they're fine, said Chit Chat. Bright Bill is such a great flyer that I know he'll keep the flock out of trouble. He is a great flyer, said Roz, but I still worry. Life is short, Dig Down the Groundhog was giving another one of his fireside speeches. I'll be lucky if I see another spring. I don't want your pity. I've had a good run. But I'll tell you what, if I could do it all over again, I'd spend more time helping others. All I've ever done is dig tunnels. Some of them were real beauties too, but they're all hidden underground. And they were no good to anyone but me. And they weren't even good to me this winter. Now, the beavers, they have it all figured out. They built this beautiful dam which created a lovely pond that's made all of our lives better. That must feel mighty good. The beavers made our lives better in another way too, said Fink. They taught Roz how to build. Ain't that the truth, said Dig Down. Roz, you must have saved half the island with your lodges. And to think, we used to call you a monster. I'll repay my debt to you if it's the last thing I do. Your friendship is payment enough, said Roz. Oh, please, your sweetness is going to make me sick. There must be something we can do. Your friendship is really enough. Friends help each other out, and I will need all the help I can get. My mind is strong, but my body will not last forever, and I want to survive as long as possible. And to do that, I will need the help of my friends. The animals listened quietly to Roz and thought of their own struggles to survive. Life in the wilderness was hard for everyone. There was no escaping that fact. But the robot had made their lives a little easier, and if ever they could, the animals would return the favor. I've seen 93 winters, far more than any of you. Craig, the turtle, spoke slowly, but everyone always listened to his words. And I can tell you that the winters have gotten colder, the summers have gotten hotter, and the storms have gotten fiercer. I heard that the ocean has gotten higher, said Chit Chat, but I don't see how that could be true. I mean, where would all the water come from? You're right, the ocean is higher, said Craig. My grandfather used to say that long ago this island was not an island at all. It was a mountain, surrounded by flat lands. And when the ground shook, the oceans grew, and the land slowly flooded until the mountain became this island. Animals from far and wide were forced to come here to escape the floodwaters. In those early days, there were too many animals living in such a small place. Chit Chat's eyes grew wide with concern. If the ocean keeps rising, the island will be swallowed up by waves, and I don't know how to swim. If the waves do swallow this island, it will not happen for a very long time, said Craig. By then, we will long be dead, even me. Everything has a purpose. It was Swooper's turn to lecture the lodge. The sun is meant to give light. The plants are meant to grow. The owls are meant to hunt. The mice are meant to hide. The raccoons are meant to scavenge. Roz, what are you meant to do? I do not believe I have a purpose. Ha! I respectfully disagree, said Swooper. Clearly you are meant to build. I think Roz was meant to grow gardens. Roz is definitely meant to take care of Brightbill. Perhaps I am simply meant to help others. Chapter 59, The Spring. Dripping water, flowing water, splashing water. Winter's blanket of snow and ice was finally beginning to melt. White was fading away to expose the gray and browns that had been hidden beneath. Little green buds were appearing all over. Crowds of bright flowers were rising up from the dirt, and soon the island would be bursting with rich scents and colors. At long last, it was spring. The lodgers returned to their own homes. The hibernators emerged from their secret places. Roz roamed across the island and checked in with the beavers and the bears and all the friends she had missed. And when the robot went home to work on her garden, after the bitterest winter anybody could recall, life was slowly returning to normal. However, it was a quiet spring. There were fewer insects buzzing, fewer birds singing, fewer rodents rustling. Many creatures had frozen to death over the winter, and as the last snow melted away, their corpses were slowly revealed. The wilderness really can be ugly sometimes, but from the ugliness came beauty. You see, those poor dead creatures returned to the earth. Their bodies nourished the soil, and they helped create the most dazzling spring bloom the island had ever seen. And there's a picture of the snow melting and the streams flowing. How much time do we have? We have a little bit of time. Chapter 60, The Fish. Help, help, he's got my tail. Paddler was splashing and screaming in the pond. Mr. and Mrs. Beaver were nowhere to be seen, so Roz picked up a fallen tree branch and stomped into the shallows. Grab onto this, she said as she reached out with the branch. Paddler grabbed it with his big teeth, and the robot lifted him out of the water. And there, hanging from the young beaver's tail, was Rockmouth, the grumpy old pike. In one quick movement, Roz pulled in the branch and grabbed the fish with her two hands. Paddler flopped into the water, where his parents suddenly appeared. What is wrong with you, Rockmouth? Mrs. Beaver dragged her son away. You've always been a nuisance, but this time you've gone too far. Do us all a favor, Roz, and toss him to the vultures. I cannot do that, said the robot, but I might be able to help. Roz placed Rockmouth in the middle of a puddle near the pond where he couldn't swim away. Then she waited for the fish to explain himself. Fish aren't very talkative, especially grumpy fish like Rockmouth. But eventually he opened up to the robot, and before long, she was waving to the beavers to join them. Rockmouth used to live in the river, said Roz as the beavers shuffled over, but you trapped him here when you built your dam. He's been very angry about it ever since. That doesn't give him the right to attack our son, hollered Mr. Beaver. It most certainly does not, hollered Mrs. Beaver. I'd be upset too, said Paddler softly. I'd hate being kept away from my home. Mr. Rockmouth, you should have said something sooner. The fish looked up at the puddle with frustration, with a frustrated expression that meant, I tried, but no one was listening. Well, the situation had to be remedied, and you can guess who rose to the occasion. Roz was determined to get Rockmouth back to his home. After she explored the nearby waterways, it became clear that she would have to carry the pike through the forest and across the great meadow to the nearest bend in the river. What does she need to carry Rockmouth? What do you think? You know what? Maybe we're going to stop there And if you're all caught up with us, why don't you design a container to get Rockmouth over or across the Great Meadow to the bend in the river? Now, boys and girls, remember, we're in a forest. So you can't just go get a plastic bin or a pot from the kitchen. Think like Roz. What is there in the forest that Roz could make or use to get Rockmouth across a long meadow into a bend in a river? All right, I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Bye.